y'all, and welcome back to my channel. So today we are continuing on with our step-by-step makeup routine, and I'm going to show you how to blush and bronze for you and your face shape. So stay tuned and let's jump into the video. Before we jump into bronzer, I want to talk about how to choose the bronzer that is best suited for your skin. And also, if you didn't watch the previous video, why contour and bronzer are different. So when you're thinking about choosing a bronzer, look at and think about what color your skin turns when you get sun naturally. So for me, my skin doesn't necessarily turn a kind of golden brown color. I turn very red because with my skin tone, my background, I already have a lot of pinky red tones in my skin, and I tend to burn more than I tan. So I like a bronzer that has a little bit more of a pinky red undertone to it versus something that's more yellow, because something that has more of a yellow tone on my skin tone can look very kind of, it can translate very orangey and very artificial. And I want the bronzer to look the most real as it can. So I've got two different bronzers. So here's one that you can see against my skin appears very, very yellow. And this one has more of kind of like a peachy redness to it. And this color, you can kind of see even against my skin tone, it just looks more of a natural color that would kind of go along with my face, where this color kind of appears a little too orange. And I can make this work, but it's definitely going to be more of a look versus a natural bronzed finish. So I'm going to be using this bronzer today, and this is the Mercier Matte Radiance Baked Powder in Bronze 3. And just for comparison, I showed this in the previous video on how to contour and highlight, but the difference between, for me, what a bronzer color is versus a contour color. So a bronzer is, for me, a color that mimics what my skin does naturally in the sun, where a contour is creating shadow. So contour is in a receded area, where bronzer is going to kind of warm an area up. And you can see here, my contour is much more gray. So if you look here where my light is hitting my face, it kind of creates like this naturally kind of rosy flush to the skin. Here, where my skin is more in shadow, it has more of a gray appearance. So for me and my particular skin, that color kind of mimics the natural shadowing on my face, where this color mimics the kind of flush my skin gets when it's exposed to the sun. So for bronzer brushes, you want to find a brush that is going to kind of complement the size of your face. So for me and my face, I like something like this because I have a very large face. So you can see this is going to take up a lot more space and deposit a wider flush of color. Then you've got something that's slightly more of a medium size and something that's smaller. I use this brush that's smaller. You can see it's sturdy because this is what I use to contour. This is going to be small enough to hug the kind of curvature of my face and deposit color in a very precise place. Where this color, I can use this one. This could work very well. It's just going to make my job harder, and I'm going to put forth a lot more effort. Where if I use something like this, I can create the look very, very quickly. I put my brush in my bronzer. I kind of like to press and kind of gently drag over. I don't like to swirl into the product because that's going to kind of just create a bunch of kick up, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to tap off the excess. And when you go to apply your bronzer, I like to keep my bronzer fairly high because I don't like my bronzer to kind of go into the contour area, because like I said earlier, the contours of my face aren't kind of like that warm, reddy orange color. They've got more of a gray tone. So I want my bronzer placement to mimic where the sun hits my skin. So think about the high points. So the sun tends to hit me right here across my forehead, because this is the part of my forehead that comes the furthest forward. The center of the bridge of my nose, because this area comes forward. And then, so you can kind of see here, this comes forward, this comes forward, my chin comes forward, and kind of the center point of my cheeks comes forward. So when I take my bronzer, I like to kind of go across the forehead. So it's almost like a windshield rainbow motion. So kind of just over the forehead. So it's not going up to where I contoured my forehead, but it's not going as low as to where I would kind of highlight above my eyebrows. So kind of right in between, pick up a little bit more product. And then I like to start once again the hairline and kind of almost like a W motion across the center of my face. A little bit across my chin. And you can take a little bit across your neck. And then I like to knock off any extra product and just kind of gently buff over where I applied that color. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned, I'm using a BK Beauty 102 brush to apply my bronzer. And you can see there, quick, easy, but now my skin has that warmth back to it. It has the warmth, kind of like it's been naturally kissed by the sun, but my face doesn't look orange. It doesn't look muddy. It's just kind of creating that natural gradient to the skin. And sometimes I like to go through, kind of use just a light bit of pressure and kind of reinforce those areas where I want it to look really kind of sun-kissed. You've got your highlight on, you've got your contour, and now your bronzer. But where does your blush go? And there's really no right or wrong way to apply your blush. So for blush, I'm going to be using the Hourglass Ambient Strobe Lighting Blush in Incandescent Electra. And that looks like this. So it's a nice kind of corally blush because where that bronzer, to mimic my skin, has more of a warm, ruddy undertone, I don't want to use anything too cool, too pink, too mauvey because it's not going to blend in with the color. So I like my colors to kind of match. So if I use a warmer bronzer, I want to use a warmer blush so everything can kind of flow. I want the blush color to have enough of a pop to stand out from the bronzer. So I'm going to use a rephr number 19 brush, and I'm just going to swirl into like little circular motions. Now, you could drag, but with these Hourglass blushes, because they're marbled, you kind of need to mix them so you get the optimal effect. So, like I said in the contour video, my face is longer than it is wide, so I want to create more width through here, but I want to add a fullness to my cheeks. So you can either start from the back or you can go from the front. It really depends on your personal preference, but I want my cheeks to really pop. So a lot of people say smile. So you can see here, I smile. Here's the apple of my cheeks. Look what happens when I stop smiling. It goes down. I don't want my blush to be down here because I don't want to drag the look of my face down. I like my blush. I want it to be like the apple of my cheek is higher up. So I'm going to take my blush where I want the apple of my cheek to be, and I'm going to buff through here. So it's almost like right in the middle. It's going to blend the kind of blush contour or the highlight, the contour, and the bronzer all together. And I always like to keep kind of like a 2-finger space from the nose. So this way the blush color doesn't emphasize any redness on the nose, which a lot of people tend to get. And it's just small circular motions. And blush is just really great for adding kind of life back to the skin. And another little trick I like to do is add a little bit of blush to the forehead. So right through here on the side of my forehead. So I like to do this because where I've got my bronzer kind of through here, contour here, wherever there's going to be a tan, there's going to be a little bit of a burn. So I want to mimic that burn for the most realistic approach. So kind of between where my bronzer and my skin is, I want to kind of just buff a little bit of that blush color right through there. And then also a little bit right on the tip of my chin, a little bit on my nose. Not much, because I don't want it to look like I have a red nose or a red chin or a red forehead. Just enough to kind of blend those colors together. So here's one side of my face with blush. You can see I've just got that flush of color that kind of adds life to the skin. Blush is really good for just adding kind of like that effect. You've got blood coming to the surface, and also where I applied my blush slightly higher, it creates the illusion of a more lifted face. So one side with blush, one side without blush. Here's where I want my cheek to be. So kind of place your finger on your cheek when you smile, bring it forward a little bit, relax, and I want it to be up here. So my little circles right through here, and work my way straight back. So straight line, because if I make an angle, it's gonna create an angle going down. I don't wanna drag my face down. I wanna kind of create a wider appearance so there's more kind of balance between the length of my face and the width of my face. And I like to do little circles. Take a little bit just to blend that bronzer into my skin tone on my chin, a little bit on my nose, and then I'll just take my time working back and forth. You can even turn your head to the side if you want to. There you go. We've got our highlight on, we have our contour on, we've got some blush, we've got bronzer. So next, let's jump into how to finish off our complexion, and then we'll move on to eyes, lips, and brows. So stay tuned, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.